The night was cold and the wind whistled through the small village. In the shadows of a humble stable, a figure huddled close to the ground. Her name was Eliza. She had found shelter here, a place that smelled of hay and warmth but still left her shivering. Eliza had left her home just days ago. A place that had once felt safe had turned into a prison of fear and pain. Each night as she lay awake, she remembered the shouts and the moments that made her heart race with terror. She needed to escape, to find a new beginning, even if she didn't know how or where. With her ragged clothes wrapped tightly around her thin frame, Eliza closed her eyes and tried to imagine happier days. For a brief moment she pictured her childhood, running through sunlit fields, laughing with friends. But those memories faded as quickly as they came, replaced by the reality of her present. A soft sound broke the stillness of the night, a gentle clinking, the low murmur of a voice. Eliza's heart raced. Had she been discovered? She held her breath as the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside. It was him. His name was Daniel, a young farmer who worked tirelessly in the village, known for his kindness. Tonight he was finishing up chores at the stables, unaware that he was about to change someone's life forever. Daniel paused when he noticed her, a shadow in the corner. He called softly, his voice warm and inviting. Eliza peeked out from her hiding place, her heart pounding in her chest. He didn't want to be seen, but something in his tone, something gentle and safe, drew her to him. "It's okay," he said again, stepping closer. With caution, she emerged from the darkness, revealing herself to him. Her eyes, wide with fear, met his. She could see surprise flicker across his face, but his expression quickly softened into concern. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, lowering his voice. I'm Eliza," she stammered, pulling her knees up to her chest. Daniel knelt down so they were eye level. He scanned her worried face, and something in her eyes told him she had been through so much. Relief washed over her, though it was quickly followed by doubt. But Daniel shook his head. "No one comes here late at night. You're safe." His words settled in her heart. He had no reason to lie. His eyes were full of warmth. She felt a flicker of trust begin to grow, just a small spark in the vast darkness she had lived in for so long. As the minutes ticked by, Daniel pulled a small, tattered blanket from a nearby pile of hay. "Here," he said, wrapping it around her shoulders. The blanket was old, worn, but it was warm, a small but significant gesture. It wrapped around her like a hug, and for the first time in a long while she felt safe. Tears threatened to spill down her cheeks as her defenses slowly melted away. "Thank you," Eliza whispered. Daniel smiled gently. "You deserve it." He took a seat nearby, the hay crunching beneath him. "You can talk to me if you want, or not." Eliza looked at him, studying his face. He had a kind smile, a face that showed years of hard work and laughter. "I was running away," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded, not pressing her for details, sensing she would share when she was ready. "You did the right thing." As the two sat in comfortable silence, small sounds echoed in the stable, the soft rustle of hay, the quiet hum of the horses in their stalls. It felt like a sanctuary, a place of healing. The air was still with an understanding that wrapped around them both, and slowly Eliza began to feel her spirit lift. Eliza asked, curiosity getting the best of her. Daniel chuckled softly. "I guess it's what I know best. There's comfort in the life I've built here despite its challenges. It reminds me of my family." His words resonated with Eliza. She thought of the family she'd lost, even if they were still alive. The support she once had felt distant, like old photos of people she barely recognized anymore. She asked, wanting to understand the ache that echoed in his voice. "Every day," Daniel replied, his gaze distant as memories washed over him. "But I find joy in the little things, the animals, the work." Eliza listened intently, a soft warmth spreading in her chest. She had never shared her story with anyone, never spoken her truth, but something made her want to unearth her pain with him. "My parents," she paused, feeling vulnerability weave through her thoughts. "I felt lost." Daniel nodded in understanding. "It's okay to feel that way." As the night wore on, they talked about their dreams, their fears, and the fire that burned deep within them both. Eliza learned that Daniel had dreams of traveling, seeing the world beyond the fields he'd grown up in. His passion lit his eyes, and she could see that he was just as lost in so many ways. Hours passed, and the barn grew quieter. Their laughter, their stories created a fragile bond, like intricate threads weaving together their stories. Beneath the blanket, Eliza began to feel something else, hope. She had fought hard to survive, and now in the warmth of the stable, she sensed she might just thrive. Tears stung Eliza's eyes, but this time not from sadness. It was a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in ages: gratitude. She had found shelter not just from the cold, but also in Daniel's kind heart. Then, just as dawn began to creep over the horizon, a loud sound broke through the quiet. A horse whinnied anxiously. Daniel stood up, moving towards the sound, but before he stepped away from her, he turned back to her. "Wait here, okay? I'll be right back." He smiled reassuringly, and just as quickly as he had come, he was gone. Eliza let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. She wrapped the blanket tighter around her shoulders and let her gaze wander around the stable. The warmth of the place became a sanctuary for her thoughts. Then unexpectedly, doubt crept back in. What if he left her? What if this moment of safety was just an illusion? But as soon as the worry settled in her mind, a stronger thought pushed it away. She deserved this. She had fought for warmth and safety, and now they were within her grasp. Daniel returned, eyes bright with worry. "Sorry, just had to check on the horses." "It's okay," she replied, feeling a flutter of joy that he had come back quickly. "I was just—" Daniel placed a hand against the wall of the stable, leaning in, his expression earnest. "You know you're not alone." As the first rays of sunlight broke through the gaps in the barn, Eliza truly saw him, his unwavering strength, his compassion. In that moment, something shifted in her. She felt a connection, a bond blooming between them like spring flowers breaking through winter's grip. Days turned into weeks. What began as a fleeting moment of shelter turned into a sanctuary. Eliza found herself staying at the farm longer than she intended. With every passing day, the blanket he had given her became a symbol of her new life, a life built on trust and rising from the ashes. Together, they worked side by side, tending to the animals in the fields. They explored the village, sharing laughter over simple meals. With Daniel, Eliza found her voice again. She spoke freely, her heart slowly healing, the wounds of her past replaced with seeds of resilience. One evening, as they stood under a sky painted with stars, Eliza turned to Daniel, a soft smile lighting up her face. "Thank you for giving me a blanket that night." Daniel looked at her, his eyes glimmering with understanding. "You've taught me too, Eliza. It's okay to open up, to feel things deeply." In that moment, they both saw it. The fragile thread of hope had turned into a strong bond. It was more than shelter. They had found each other. And with that, they realized they were ready to face whatever awaited them together. As seasons changed, Eliza learned to chase her dreams. With Daniel by her side, they planned not just a future together, but one where their hearts could soar, free from the burdens of their past. Each day was a little brighter, a little warmer. Eliza had transformed from a girl who had only known fear into a woman who had finally tasted freedom. She had found shelter, yes, but in the end it was love that wrapped around her like that old blanket that guided her home. The night was silent, but for the distant sound of a horse kicking against the wooden stall. Somewhere in the darkness, a young woman named Eliza crouched on the cold ground, her heart pounding like thunder. She didn't belong here. This stable was a refuge, but also a reminder of everything she was fleeing. Just hours before, she had been running, driven by desperation, her feet pounding against the rough earth as shadows chased her. She could still hear the angry shouts echoing behind her, the weight of fear heavy on her chest. She ducked into the stable, praying she wouldn't be found. The horses stirred, sensing her presence. They were beautiful animals, strong and graceful, their warm breath misting in the cold air. Eliza hadn't grown up around animals. They felt foreign, yet strangely comforting. She pulled her thin coat tighter around her, wishing for warmth that wouldn't come. In her mind, she replayed the reasons for her flight. A family torn apart, trust shattered, and safety replaced with dread. Eliza had once lived in a world where laughter filled the air, but now darkness clung to her like a shadow. She whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. She had lost more than a home. She had lost herself. As the wind howled outside, her thoughts danced between memories and dreams, wonderful landscapes, bright futures, and fleeting moments of joy. Yet every time she reached for those dreams, they slipped away, consumed by doubt. Suddenly, the barn door creaked open, casting a sliver of light into her shadowy corner. Startled, Eliza pressed herself against the wall, her heart racing. What if it was someone from her past? As she peered toward the entrance, a figure stepped inside, a young man with determined eyes and unkempt hair, holding a lantern that swung slightly, illuminating the stable. He called out gently, his voice deeper than she expected. Eliza held her breath, ready to retreat into the darkness, but there was something in his tone, a kindness, a genuine concern. He stepped closer. "I won't hurt you." Tentatively, she revealed herself from the shadows. The light caught her face, and she felt exposed, vulnerable. She asked, trying to sound strong, but her voice wavered slightly. "I'm Daniel," he said, taking a cautious step forward. "I work here. I didn't expect anyone." For a moment, all Eliza could do was blink at him, processing his unexpected presence. Then she stammered, I'm fine, just..." Daniel studied her for a moment, his brow furrowing. "You don't look fine," he replied honestly. "You look cold." The question hung in the air, should she trust him? She could see the worry etched on his face, but she felt a swell of relief at his concern. I needed to get away," she finally admitted, lowering her eyes to the ground. He took another step closer, lowering his voice. "You're safe here." Somewhere within Eliza, a flicker of hope sparked. "Really?" Daniel shrugged, a smile just shy of broad breaking through his serious demeanor. Eliza dared to meet his gaze again. "Yes," he nodded softly, taking in her ragged appearance. As they shared an unspoken moment, a gust of wind rattled the stable doors. Eliza shivered, not just from the chill, but also from an unexpected feeling, vulnerability. Daniel noticed. He reached toward a pile of hay and pulled out a worn, faded blanket. "Here," he said, offering it to her. She hesitated for a moment, then took it, wrapping it around her shoulders. It smelled of hay and warmth, but more than that, felt like security. In that instant, she understood it symbolized something more, a bridge between her past and whatever lay ahead. "Thank you," she whispered, the words heavy with meaning. Daniel asked quietly as he settled onto a nearby bale of hay, giving her space but also inviting her closer. Eliza took a deep breath. The words were bubbling up inside her, a dam threatening to burst. She hesitated, unsure if she could share her pain. There were so many fights. So much anger, she finally managed, choking on the truth. Daniel nodded, his expression empathetic. I get that. He paused, and for a moment the silence stretched between them like a tether. Tears stung Eliza's eyes as the dam broke. I just wanted to feel free again. Daniel leaned closer, his voice low and sincere. The understanding in his gaze wrapped around her heart like a comforting embrace. I don't know what that path looks like, she admitted, her voice trembling as the fear of the unknown loomed over her. It's okay to not know, Daniel replied. Life isn't always clear. As they spoke, the connection between them grew. With every moment she felt her walls slowly crumble. She began to share her dreams of travel, of art, and the beauty she yearned to create. Daniel listened, nodding, as if she were revealing the secrets of the universe. Soon the conversation transitioned into laughter, and for the first time in a long time, Eliza felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the blanket. Daniel told her stories of his childhood, filled with mischief and laughter, painting pictures of endless fields and sunny skies. Hours slipped away unnoticed as the moon hung high, casting its silver light into the stable. As she spoke, Eliza felt the burdens of her past beginning to lift. Each story, each laughter shared was like a brick removed from her heart, yet with dawn approaching, she knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. She suddenly asked, a knot forming in her stomach. Daniel's eyes flickered with determination. You deserve your freedom. If you need a place to hide for a while, this stable will always be here for you. The weight of his words settled within her. It was an offer of protection she had never known. And with that, something began to awaken inside her, a sense of resilience, a spark of faith that perhaps she could find her way. As the night surrendered to a soft dawn, Eliza looked around the stable. A sense of belonging began to form, as if the very walls were holding her dreams, waiting for her to realize them. Days turned into weeks. Each morning brought bright sunlight and new opportunities. Eliza spent her time learning about the farm, helping Daniel with chores. He found joy in the rhythm of hard work, laughter echoing between them as they tackled each task together. But with each passing day, she felt the shadows of her past creeping back. Would she always be running? Daniel noticed the change in her demeanor and approached her one afternoon as they tended to the horses. Hey, Eliza, he said, pausing as he rested a hand on the fence. You seem distant today. She gazed at the horizon where the sun kissed the sky. I'm worried about what happens when I leave this place. Daniel searched her face, concern etching his features. Eliza blinked, caught off guard. Yes, it's not just about where you go, it's about your mindset. You can carry that freedom wherever you are. His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Maybe he was right. Maybe freedom started in the heart and mind, not just in the world outside. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, their comfortable banter filled the small kitchen. As they chopped vegetables, Eliza turned to him, feeling light. I want to create something, she blurted out. Then do it, Daniel said, flashing her a grin. Find a way to express yourself here. The suggestion ignited a fire within her. I think I will, she replied, determination burning in her chest. I have a canvas I was saving. Next day found Eliza sitting inside the stable with her easel, paint scattered around her like confetti. She had taken Daniel's words to heart, and as she dipped her brush into vibrant colors, she felt the weight of her past slowly lifting. The strokes transformed into splashes of hope, joy, and freedom. Daniel peeked in occasionally, watching her transform the blank canvas into a vibrant mural of the life she longed for. The colors danced within her visions, each stroke carving out new possibilities. Days turned into weeks again, and Eliza found herself enveloped in a world of creativity. Her artwork began to flourish, colors spilling out like the emotions she had kept bottled for so long. With every painting she created, her confidence grew. She had transformed the stable into her sanctuary, a place where dreams blossomed. And then, one crisp morning, she stood before her latest masterpiece, a breathtaking depiction of a sunrise breaking over a vast horizon. With every detail, she poured out hopes, dreams, and the beauty she once thought lost. Wow, Daniel breathed as he stepped into the stable, taking in the brilliance on the canvas. This is incredible, Eliza. A warm smile spread across her face, a deep sense of joy flooding her heart. Thank you, Daniel. In that moment, standing in front of her creation, Eliza realized she had not just found shelter in the stable, she had found herself within its walls. The connection between them deepened, forged through shared vulnerabilities. Daniel took a step closer, his gaze intense yet gentle. You've come so far in such a short time, you're not just surviving anymore, you're living. Eliza could feel the flutter of emotions rising between them, something deeper, something beautiful, growing stronger within this shared journey. I couldn't have done it without you, she said, her voice steady. No, he replied softly, his eyes never leaving hers. You did this. In the weeks that followed, they became partners in art and life. Eliza painted not just the walls, but the very essence of their days together, the laughter, the late-night talks, and the dreams that intertwined into a beautiful tapestry. The stable transformed into a gallery of hope, a place where shadows were chased away by the brilliance of color. And as Eliza's heart healed, she understood the true meaning of love. it was more than companionship. It was a journey of healing, breathing life into dreams that were once suffocated by fear. One beautiful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting hues of orange and pink, Daniel found Eliza by her canvas. He looked at her, that same warm expression lighting up his face. He asked. Eliza took a deep breath, realizing the answer nestled inside her. I want to keep creating. I want to show my art to others, to share my journey. Daniel nodded, his pride shining through. Then let's do it together. As they embraced under the fading light, Eliza understood that she had found more than just shelter in a stable. She had found the courage to step into her own life, a life enriched by the warmth of hope, friendship, and the possibility of love. With Daniel by her side, her journey was just beginning, and now at long last she was ready to embrace it all. The barn door creaked ever so slightly, almost as if it were trying to keep a secret. Inside, shadows shifted under the dim light of a single lantern. In one corner, a girl shivered, pulling her thin jacket tighter around her. Her name was Eliza, and she had found herself in a place that felt like both a refuge and a prison. Just hours before, she had been running. With every step, her heart raced, pounding in her chest like a drum echoing through a silent night. The shouts from her childhood home still rang in her ears, a haunting reminder of the chaos she had fled. She needed a place to hide, to breathe, and the stable had come into view like a beacon of hope. Eliza crouched against the wall, clutching her knees. The scent of hay filled her nostrils, mixing with the earthy aroma of animals. It was a comforting smell, grounding her in the present, drawing her away from the anger and fear she had left behind. Yet even in this sanctuary, she felt a twinge of panic. What if someone found her? What would they do? Suddenly, the door swung open, flooding the stable with light. Eliza jolted, pressing further into the shadows as a figure stepped inside, tall and broad, with a curious look in his eyes. He held a lantern that cast flickering light across the wooden walls. He called out, his voice deep and warm, cutting through the stillness of the barn. Her heart raced as she debated whether to remain hidden or reveal herself. I'm fine, she whispered, though she knew it was far from the truth. He stepped closer, stopping just beyond the reach of the flickering lantern light. You don't look fine, he said, concern etched on his face. The vulnerability in his eyes made Eliza hesitate. I just needed to get away, she confessed, her voice trembling. The man took another small step forward. I'm Daniel, he introduced himself, tilting his head. You don't have to be scared. Eliza examined him closely. There was no threat in his posture, only kindness. She asked, a hint of skepticism lacing her words. Absolutely, Daniel assured her, extending his hand as if to bridge the gap between them. With uncertainty and hope battling within her, Eliza decided to step into the light, fully revealing herself. She was a mess-clothes, rumpled, hair a tangled mess from her flight, but there was something reassuring in Daniel's gaze, something that said she wouldn't be judged. Thank you, she said quietly, her voice gaining strength. Daniel smiled gently, a softness in his gaze. I come here to take care of the horses in the place. Sometimes it's nice to be surrounded by animals. It feels. Eliza nodded, feeling the truth in his words. The chaos of her past melted away just a little as she looked around the stable. It was more than a building. It was alive with the sounds of horses shifting in their stalls and the faint rustling of hay. Daniel asked, curiosity shining in his eyes. Eliza, she replied, feeling safer with each question he asked. Eliza had learned that kindness was a rare currency. It could easily be spent, yet it was the most crucial thing she needed right now. A flicker of warmth ignited in her chest, and she cautiously began to relax. You're welcome, he replied, moving closer to a hay bale. You look cold. He reached down and picked up a worn blanket that had been tossed aside. Its fabric was frayed but still held warmth, and he unfurled it, holding it out to her. She hesitated for a moment, caught off guard by his generosity. Please, he insisted. I insist. Cautiously, Eliza accepted the blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. It felt like a shield against the world, a tiny cocoon that held warmth and compassion. In that moment, something began to shift inside her. This blanket wasn't just an object, it was a symbol of his kindness and her newfound safety. Thank you, she whispered again, her heart swelling with gratitude. The two sat in companionable silence for a while, the stable filling with soft sounds, the rustle of hay, the gentle nickering of the horses. Daniel sat across from her, watching her intently, and it was in that moment she realized she didn't feel quite so alone anymore. Daniel broke the silence softly, his voice smooth like honey. Eliza drew in a sharp breath, the weight of the question heavy. She had practiced her story 1,000 times in her mind, rehearsed the words until they felt like a script. My home, it turned into a battleground, she admitted, struggling to control the tremor in her voice. There were too many fights. Daniel nodded, not rushing her, just giving her space to breathe. Sometimes it feels like we can't escape our surroundings, he said thoughtfully. But you did. I didn't know if it was the right one, she replied, tears pooling in her eyes. His gaze softened. Freedom begins inside us. His words lingered, wrapping around Eliza like the blanket. She felt something akin to hope stirring within her. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to spread her wings again. As the hours passed, the connection between them deepened. Daniel shared stories of his childhood on the farm, moments filled with laughter and innocence. He talked of the animals he had cared for and the dreams he had of traveling the world, seeing new places beyond the familiar fields that surrounded them. Eliza listened, her heart filling with warmth. For the first time, she felt like she could dream again. Her mind wandered to the colors she had once loved, of canvases waiting to be painted on. "You're a good storyteller," she said, smiling. "I believe life is beautiful," he replied earnestly. "Even amidst the chaos, you can find joy in small things." Eliza thought about his words. Perhaps it was time for her to change her perspective. She had spent so long dwelling on her pain that she had forgotten to appreciate what was still good in the world. As days turned into weeks, the stable transformed from a mere shelter into a place where Eliza began to thrive. She grew comfortable with Daniel, spending her mornings helping him with chores and her afternoons lost in creativity sketching the animals, feeling her soul awaken again. The vibrant colors crept back into her life like the blooming flowers outside. Each day was a fresh canvas, a chance to push past her fear, a chance to embrace the person she was becoming. On one particularly bright morning, as golden rays streamed through the barn windows, Eliza stood before her easel with excitement bubbling in her chest. She had saved up a few supplies and wanted to create something special, a piece that embodied her journey. She called out, her voice full of enthusiasm. He stepped into the stable, eyes bright with curiosity. "I'm going to paint something," she revealed, her heart racing. "Sounds amazing," he encouraged, stepping closer to study the blank canvas. "I want to paint a sunrise," she said, her voice steady. "It represents new beginnings, hope." He nodded, impressed. "That's beautiful, Eliza." With his encouragement ringing in her ears, she grabbed her brush and plunged it into vibrant colors. Each stroke felt liberating, releasing emotions she had bottled up for so long. The canvas came alive, filling with hues of orange, pink, and gold colors of a dawn that symbolized her own awakening. Hours flew by as she poured her heart into the painting, the outside world fading away. Daniel left to handle chores but returned often to check on her progress, always smiling, always cheering her on. Eventually, Eliza took a step back and stared at her creation. It was more than just a painting, it was a testament to her journey. "I did it," she whispered to herself, the realization filling her with triumph. Daniel exclaimed, walking in just in time. Her heart soared at his praise. "Really? Absolutely," he confirmed, his eyes sparkling. In that moment, everything inside her shifted. She felt a connection, not just to the art she created, but also to Daniel, his support, his kindness, and the way he believed in her even when she couldn't believe in herself. As their friendship deepened, Eliza found herself opening up more and more. She shared her dreams, her fears, and the shadows from her past that continued to lurk, but with Daniel's presence, they felt smaller, manageable. One evening, as they sat on bales of hay watching the stars begin to twinkle, Daniel turned to her. Eliza swallowed hard, the question stirring something in her. "Sometimes, I worry I'll never find my way." "Strength isn't just about physical power," he replied, his tone serious yet gentle. "It's about facing uncertainty and still choosing to keep moving forward." His words resonated deep within her. The fear she had clutched onto for so long began to slip. Maybe she was stronger than she believed, and maybe it was time to embrace that strength. With the days flowing into one another, the stable became more than just a hiding place. It became a tapestry of laughter, warmth, and healing. Eliza's art began to flourish. She painted murals on the barn walls, each one telling a story of resilience and rebirth. And then one day, she woke up and knew it was time to share her story with the world. "I want to hold a little exhibition," she told Daniel, determination shining in her eyes. "I want people to see what I've created." "Let's do it," he said without hesitation. "I can help with that, we'll make it big." With his encouragement and support, the exhibition began to take shape. As the night approached, a crowd gathered outside the stable, curiosity coiling in the air like a tension-filled string ready to snap. Eliza stood nervously at the entrance, her heart racing. Daniel asked, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. She took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the blanket wrapped around her shoulders, the same blanket that had first embraced her in fear. "I think so," she said, though doubt still lingered. "You've already conquered so much," he reminded her. He stepped back and Eliza gathered her courage. With a nod, she pushed the door open and stepped out into the dimly lit stable, the crowd's murmurs fading as they turned their attention to her. The sight of the faces staring back was daunting, but as she closed her eyes for a brief moment, she could feel Daniel's presence anchoring her. He believed in her, so maybe, just maybe, she could believe in herself too. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steadying as she spoke. She shared her story, how she had struggled, how she had found the strength to leave, and how she began to rebuild her life in this cozy stable with the help of someone who saw her for who she truly was. As she revealed each painting, each brushstroke laced with emotion, the atmosphere shifted. The audience began to connect with her story, the weight of her words leaving an imprint on their hearts, and as she went on, she felt lighter. She was no longer haunted by the shadows of her past, but empowered by the light of her journey. When she finished speaking, a wave of applause erupted, washing over her like a warm embrace. Eliza stood before them, overwhelmed but ecstatic. She had shared her truth and in doing so discovered something profound. The weight of pain begins to dissipate the moment you share it. As the evening wrapped up, Daniel approached her, a broad smile on his face. "You were incredible." "Thank you," she breathed, her heart still racing. "It was your courage," he said, sincerity shining in his eyes. At that moment, Eliza knew she had not just found shelter in a stable, but also a new life, a voice, and an unbreakable bond. She was ready to embrace whatever came next, and with Daniel by her side, she felt unstoppable. Love, courage, and hope had intertwined in a way she had never thought possible. She was free. She was alive. And with every new dawn, she was ready to paint her future one brushstroke at a time. Rain pelted down in sheets, drumming on the roof of the stable like an urgent, desperate plea. Eliza huddled in the far corner, drenched and shivering, her heart racing with fear and uncertainty. She had stumbled into this refuge not knowing what she would find, and now she was left wondering if it had been the right choice. The world outside felt chaotic, but here, surrounded by the damp scent of hay and the soft whinnies of horses, there was a fragile sense of safety. Just hours ago, she had been running. Her heart thumped in her chest as she recalled the angry shouts that echoed from behind her. They had felt suffocating, weighing her down as she fought to escape a life that had become unbearable. Her parents' fights were a battleground, and Eliza was left trying to navigate through the wreckage. She needed to find her own path away from the noise, and the stable had offered her a glimpse of hope. The howling wind outside whipped around the old wooden structure, and Eliza pressed her back against the wall, trying to blend into the shadows. The darkness was comforting, wrapping around her like an old, worn blanket. She had left so much behind, but she didn't know where she was headed. Suddenly, the barn door creaked open, sending a rush of cold air billowing through the stable. Eliza's heart raced as a tall figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the dim light. He held a lantern that illuminated a small circle around him, and as he moved closer, she could make out the features of a young man. His face was determined yet kind, the sort of expression that didn't come from someone looking to cause trouble. He called gently, surveying the space. Eliza's instinct was to remain hidden, to sink deeper into the shadows and hope he would leave, but there was something in his voice, something warm and inviting. "I'm here," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might draw unwanted attention. He turned toward her, that determination softening into concern as he approached. "You look cold," he said, concern etching lines into his brow. Eliza hesitated, debating whether to tell the truth. "I just needed a place to hide," she admitted, the words tumbling out. The vulnerability in her voice startled her, but it felt good to say them. "I'm Daniel," he replied, kneeling down to her level. "You don't have to be afraid." Just like that, a flicker of hope ignited within her. "You don't even know me," she said, a mix of disbelief and gratitude swirling in her chest. "No," he agreed, "but I know the world can sometimes feel like a harsh place." Eliza's heart swelled with emotion. In a moment of instinct, she stepped closer, leaving her shadow behind. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice thick with gratitude. Daniel smiled softly, then reached for something behind him. "Here," he said, pulling out a weathered blanket that had been tossed to the side. As he unfolded it, a sense of warmth radiated from the coarse fabric. "You should wrap yourself up." The blanket felt heavy in her hands, but in a comforting way. Eliza could almost see it as a gesture of kindness, a simple human connection in a world filled with chaos. She draped it around her shoulders, and for the first time that night, she felt a sense of security. She asked, curiosity sparking as she drew the blanket tighter. Daniel chuckled softly, glancing around the stable. "I work here. I help take care of the horses and the farm." She nodded, remembering how her own thoughts had become so overwhelming. "I've needed a place like this," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's expression turned serious as he studied her face. "You can talk to me if you want." Eliza felt the warmth of the blanket cocooning her as Daniel's words sunk in. He seemed genuine, and for the first time in what felt like ages, she considered the possibility of sharing her burdens. "I left home because of, well, everything," she started, hesitation creeping into her voice. "My parents fight all the time." Daniel listened intently, his gaze steady and understanding. "That sounds really tough," he said after a moment. "It is," she confirmed, her voice trembling. "I felt like I had no choice but to run." The darkness seemed to thicken around them, but watching Daniel's kind eyes made her feel less alone. "Sometimes needing to escape is a way of finding yourself," he said quietly. Eliza considered his words, feeling the weight of her decision shifting. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders, almost as if it offered her strength. "You will," Daniel promised, his tone filled with conviction. "You just have to take one step at a time." As the rain continued to fall, the tension in Eliza's chest began to ease piece by piece. The chilling night air was countered by the warmth of Daniel's presence, and in that small stable, two souls began to connect, bonded not by experiences but by a shared understanding of pain and resilience. Days passed, and what began as a chance encounter blossomed into a friendship that Eliza needed more than she knew. Each day she returned to the stable, drawn in by Daniel's kindness and unwavering support. They worked side by side, taking care of the horses, feeding them, grooming their coats, and learning about the ways of the farm together. Eliza's laughter echoed in the air, mingling with the sounds of the barn. The tension she had carried began to diminish, replaced by the warmth of camaraderie. Daniel showed her the beauty of life outside the walls of her past, the simple joys of tending to the land, the laughter shared over meals, and even the occasional mischief they made with the animals. One sunny afternoon, as they stood outside brushing down a jet-black stallion, Eliza felt a surge of confidence. He asked, curiosity dancing in his gaze. "Yeah, I didn't think I could feel happy again," she admitted. His smile widened, exuding warmth. "You did the hard part by coming here." But amid the blossoming friendship, Eliza still felt her past tugging at her like a shadow, reminding her of everything she was running from. Sometimes the anger and fear crept back, lurking in her thoughts. One evening, as darkness fell, she sat on the hay bales in the corner of the stable, her mind spinning. The laughter that had warmed her heart now felt distant, replaced by an all-too-familiar dread. Daniel noticed her sudden silence and moved closer, concern etched across his features. "I don't know," Eliza replied, an edge of frustration cutting through her words. "I thought I was getting better." "It's okay to feel that way," Daniel said softly, adjusting his posture as he sat beside her. "Healing isn't linear. Some days will be easier and some will be harder," she whispered, fighting against the rising panic in her chest. "Then we keep fighting together," he urged, his voice steady and unwavering. "You're not alone anymore." Eliza felt a swell of gratitude for Daniel, his patience, his understanding. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, the weight of her worries beginning to ease just a little. "Believe in yourself, too," he replied earnestly, looking deep into her eyes. As the days turned to weeks, Eliza began to paint again, literally and figuratively. She pulled out brushes and colors, using the vibrancy of the world around her to fuel her creativity. With Daniel's encouragement, her artwork blossomed, capturing the beauty of the farm, the horses, and her own transformed spirit. She started to express herself on canvas, each stroke revealing a story, a moment of growth. The stable walls that had offered her shelter became adorned with her creations, vibrant colors breathing new life into the old barn. One night, as they relaxed in the stable, looking over her latest masterpiece, a stunning depiction of a sunset casting a glow over the fields, Daniel turned to her, admiration shining in his eyes. "This is incredible, Eliza. Thank you," she said, her heart racing. "Being here has changed everything for me." "You found your voice," he observed. Eliza smiled, warmth spreading through her. That night, as they sat together, surrounded by the colors of her artwork, a sense of possibility filled the air. Life began to feel more vibrant, filled with choices and new beginnings. She had come to this stable seeking shelter, now it felt like home. Then came the night that would change everything. The storm unleashed its fury again, winds howling, rain pelting down harder than before. Eliza and Daniel huddled inside, watching the chaos unfold outside. The barn creaked under the pressure, but they found comfort in each other's presence. "I'm glad you're here with me," Eliza said, the words tumbling out from her heart. Daniel's eyes reflected the lantern light as he turned to her. "You're never alone anymore." As the storm raged on, a powerful lightning strike struck nearby, illuminating the landscape. For a brief moment, Eliza caught a glimpse of the outside world, bathed in brilliant light, and then darkness swallowed it again. But in that moment of illumination, she realized something deep. She had found more than just shelter. She had found a purpose, a bond, and even love. The earlier shadows of fear began to fade away, replaced by the warmth of connection. With a soft smile, she looked at Daniel, who had been her anchor, her friend, her guide. "Thank you for giving me the blanket that first night," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Daniel met her eyes, the connection between them palpable. As the storm subsided and the world outside grew quiet, Eliza felt a shift within her. The final remnants of fear washed away with the rain. She was no longer running. She had found her place, her passion, and above all, the strength to embrace whatever tomorrow might hold. With dawn breaking, the soft light streamed in through the stable doors. Both oblivious to the struggles that once consumed her, Eliza stood up, feeling renewal and hope wash over her. "I'm ready to create more," she said, determination swelling in her heart. Daniel nodded, pride evident in his eyes. "Then let's do it together." As the sun began to rise on a new day, illuminating the stable in hues of gold and hope, Eliza understood that shelter could take many forms. It wasn't just a physical space, it was the people, the connections, and the courage to keep moving forward. In that stable, with Daniel by her side, she found not only refuge, but a tapestry woven with dreams, resilience, and ultimately, love. And from that moment on, she vowed to never lose sight of who she was meant to be. The rain fell in sheets, drenching the earth in a relentless downpour. Eliza pressed her back against the wooden walls of an old barn, her heart pounding with anxiety. She had stumbled upon this place in her frantic escape, not knowing yet if it was a sanctuary or simply another trap. A few hours earlier, she had been running from the chaos that had become her life. Each echoing shout from behind filled her with dread, so she had sprinted until her legs felt like jelly and her lungs burned. The memory of the shouts, the anger, the pain felt like chains wrapped tightly around her heart. In that moment of desperation, she darted into the barn, seeking refuge from the storm outside, both in the sky and in her life. With the wind howling outside, Eliza sank down on a pile of hay, her thin coat offering little warmth against the chill. As the raindrops pelted the roof, she couldn't choke back the sob that rose in her throat. She wrapped her arms around her knees, trying to hide from both the physical cold and the emotional storm swirling inside her. Minutes felt like hours as she sat there, her thoughts racing. Her parents had turned their home into a battlefield, each argument more explosive than the last. No one could escape the fallout, and Eliza had finally decided she could no longer be a victim of their chaos. But now, crouched in the dark, she felt lost and alone. Just then, the barn door creaked open and light spilled in from the outside. Startled, Eliza held her breath as a tall silhouette stepped inside. A young man stepped into the barn, dragging with him the remnants of daylight and a calmness that felt foreign in her chaotic world. He held a lantern which flickered softly. He called out gently, his voice warm and inviting. Eliza hesitated, debating whether to reveal herself. But there was something about his tone that felt safe, a stark contrast to the sirens of her past. "I'm here," she said, finally allowing herself to emerge from the shadows. The young man's expression shifted from surprise to concern as he approached her slowly. "You don't look fine," he said, his eyes scanning her face. "Are you okay?" She could see kindness in his eyes. I needed a place to hide," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm Daniel," he said, kneeling down to her level. "You can stay here as long as you need." In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within her. "Really? No," he replied earnestly, "but sometimes kindness is all we can offer." Eliza felt something shift in her chest. The weight of her fear began to lift as his words washed over her. "Thank you, I really appreciate it," she said, her voice a little stronger. Daniel smiled, then reached behind him and pulled out a rough, worn blanket. "Here," he offered, unfolding it slowly. "You look cold." Taking the blanket felt like accepting a lifeline. Eliza wrapped it around her shoulders, and warmth seeped into her bones. It smelled of hay and earth, and she could almost feel the weight of her worries lightening as she snuggled deeper into it. "I didn't expect anyone to be so kind," she said, a tear escaping her eye. "Life brings us together for a reason," Daniel replied, something sincere shining in his eyes. At that question, Eliza felt a mixture of vulnerability and relief. She had kept everything bottled inside for so long. "I left home because of all the fighting," she began, each word spilling forth as if freed from a dam. "My parents, they don't stop arguing. It's like living in a war zone." Daniel listened intently, nodding as she spoke, the concern never leaving his face. "I can only imagine how hard that must have been for you," he said softly. "Exactly," Eliza whispered, the memories tumbling towards her like an avalanche. He asked gently, drawing her in. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe just some peace, a little bit of quiet, I think." Daniel's eyes brightened with understanding. "And that's a journey worth taking. Just remember, it's okay to feel lost sometimes." They spent the rest of the evening talking, the bond between them growing stronger with each shared story. Daniel spoke of the farm, of the animals he cared for, and how he found solace in the quiet moments they offered. He shared tales of his own struggles, how his family wasn't perfect either, how he had learned to cope in a world that didn't always make sense. Eliza felt a warmth spreading through her as he spoke. For the first time in a long while, she felt understood. The connection they forged in that barn felt strong and transformative. Days turned into weeks, and Eliza began to carve out a new life in that stable. Living with Daniel was like stepping into a world where kindness and understanding thrived. She helped him care for the horses, brushing their coats and feeding them while discovering a newfound purpose. Laughter filled the air around them as they navigated the simple routines of life, and piece by piece, Eliza started to reclaim herself. One day, as they worked in the stable, Daniel turned to her, his brows furrowing. "Hey, I've noticed you seem different lately, more vibrant. I think I'm starting to feel like me again," Eliza replied, a smile breaking across her face. "It feels good to have the time and space to breathe, to explore what I love." Daniel said, and she could see genuine happiness in his eyes. "You've taken such a brave step by coming here." Encouraged by Daniel's words, Eliza decided to take another step forward. One afternoon, she found herself wandering through a nearby field, the sun casting golden rays on the vibrant flowers that danced in the breeze. She spotted a half-fallen tree, its sturdy trunk inviting her to sit. That day, she decided to bring back her brushes and canvas. As she set up to paint under the warm sun, Eliza felt joy bubbling within her. The strokes of her brush transformed thoughts and emotions into color. Each splash became an expression of her journey, reflecting grief, hope, and newfound strength. Weeks passed, and soon her art began to flourish. With Daniel's encouragement, she painted the beauty around her landscapes, the animals they cared for, the very essence of the life she was slowly rebuilding. Each moment spent with her canvas fueled a fire inside her, sparking not just creativity, but also the belief that she could shape her own destiny. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in stupendous shades, Eliza unveiled her latest piece, a bright sunrise bursting with color. The image symbolized rebirth, renewal, and the light that had begun to fill her life. "Wow," Daniel breathed when he saw it. "This is incredible. Thank you," she said, her heart swelling with pride. Daniel stepped closer, his expression earnest. "You brought that to life with your own hands." In that moment, Eliza realized it wasn't just the artwork that flourished, it was her spirit too. She had transformed her struggles into vibrant expressions, and the light in her heart shone brighter with every stroke. But as time often does, it brought challenges. Shadows from her past lingered, sometimes unexpected and overwhelming. One evening, she was lost in thought, staring at one of her paintings when memories of the fights from her childhood flooded back. Panic gripped her as her chest tightened, emotions threatening to consume her once more. Daniel, sensing her distress, entered the stable, concern etched across his face. "I don't know if I can keep this up," she choked out. "What if those dark moments return?" He approached, dropping down next to her. "It's okay to have doubts, you know. Healing isn't just one straight path. It's filled with ups and downs." Hearing him speak comforted her. "Then let her be part of your story," Daniel said gently. "Your past doesn't define who you are, it shapes you." Eliza looked at him, feeling the strength in his words wrap around her like a warm embrace. "Thank you for being here for me," she murmured. "Always," he promised, his eyes unwavering. With his support, she slowly began to confront those dark moments. Through painting, she poured her pain onto the canvas, confronting the emotions rather than running from them. Each brushstroke was a step toward healing, a way to reclaim her narrative. Eliza learned that it was okay to embrace all parts of herself, even the ones that felt broken. As the months rolled on, the relationship between Eliza and Daniel deepened. They became more than friends, they became a team, facing life's challenges side by side. Their laughter echoed in the barn, creating a family of sorts, a sanctuary fueled not just by the physical space, but by understanding and warmth. One sun-soaked afternoon, as they tended to the horses together, Daniel turned to her with a serious expression. Eliza replied, sensing that his tone carried weight. He asked, excitement bubbling in his voice. The question caught her off guard. "An exhibition?" Daniel shook his head. "You've come so far, your art deserves to be shared." Eliza felt a flicker of fear at the thought, but also something else, a rush of exhilaration. "Maybe I should," she said slowly, her heart racing at the possibility. "I'll help you with everything," he promised, enthusiasm evident in his voice. "Choose the location, invite people." As the idea sank in, she felt a new spark igniting within her. What if she could turn her healing journey into something that helped others? Slowly, excitement began to outweigh her fear. Plans unfolded as the next few weeks passed. Eliza worked tirelessly, preparing her pieces, and surrounded herself with familiar warmth, laughter, and encouragement. It felt different this time. She wasn't just pushing through. She was building something, creating a foundation for a future filled with possibilities. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived. The stable had transformed into a gallery, adorned with her art, each piece telling a story of joy, pain, and resilience. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers gathered, a mix of chatter filling the air. Eliza stood at the entrance, her heart pounding as she took in the scene. Daniel was by her side, exuding calmness and support. "You've done this," he said, nudging her with encouragement. With deep breaths, she welcomed the guests, sharing her journey behind each piece. Every word felt like taking a step into the light, reclaiming her narrative piece by piece. Finally, as the crowd began to disperse, a woman approached Eliza, eyes shining with gratitude. "Your art resonates deeply," she said. "I felt every emotion you captured. Thank you for sharing your journey." As they exchanged words, something inside Eliza blossomed. The darkness she had once felt began to slip away, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. She had turned her pain into light and had the power to inspire others. When the night winded down and the last guest left, Eliza found herself outside under a blanket of stars. Daniel joined her, a proud smile stretching across his face. "You did it," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, looking at him with gratitude in her eyes. In that moment, standing under the starry sky, Eliza realized that she had transformed. The girl who once cowered in the shadows had stepped boldly into her own light. She had found more than just shelter in a stable. She had found a family in the unlikeliest of places, friendship, and perhaps an unrecognized love blossoming between them. Together, they looked up at the stars, feeling the night wrap them in warmth. And in that silence, Eliza knew that whatever lay ahead, she was no longer running. She had found herself, her purpose, and a reason to believe in tomorrow. The stable, filled with art and laughter, had become more than a roof over her head. It was a home, a haven where she could grow and create the life she had always dreamed of. The storm raged outside, relentless and howling. It was the kind of night that made your skin crawl cold, dark, and full of unsettling sounds. Eliza pressed herself against the rough wood of the barn, shivering with a mix of fear and the biting wind that found its way through the cracks. She had huddled in the corner, hidden among the bales of hay, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Just hours earlier, she had been running, propelled by the urgent need to escape her past. Behind her, angry voices called out, filled with shouts that felt like bullets fired into the night. They had been her parents, trapped in their own chaos. The fights echoed in her memory loud and cutting, leaving her trembling in the aftermath. Eliza squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the noise that filled her mind. She had to get away. She had to find shelter, a place where she could breathe, where the weight of her life wouldn't suffocate her. Just when her heart felt it might burst from the pressure, she had spotted the barn, a dark silhouette offering hope and a sliver of safety. As she sat watching the rain dance against the roof, a sudden noise made her freeze. The barn door creaked open, allowing a sliver of light to spill inside. She squinted through the darkness, her breath shallow and fast. A figure stepped in, illuminating a young man holding a lantern that flickered in the damp air. He called in a deep, soothing voice that cut through the chaos of her thoughts. Eliza clutched her knees tighter to her chest, unsure if she should reveal herself. What if he was someone dangerous? But as he stepped closer, his face became clearer, a kind expression, dark hair falling over his forehead. He didn't look threatening, he looked concerned. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, kneeling down so they were eye to eye. "I promise." Taking a shaky breath, Eliza hesitated. I needed to hide," she stammered, the vulnerability in her voice surprising even herself. He asked gently, not pushing too hard but clearly wanting to understand. Her heart raced and she felt something in her chest beginning to crack. "My home is not safe," she whispered. "My parents fight all the time." As the words tumbled out, she could already see the concern deepening in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "That sounds terrible. You're safe here." His kindness wrapped around her like a warm blanket, and for the first time since she had entered the barn, she felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling something fragile shift within her. The young man smiled, his face lighting up with a warmth that was infectious. "I'm Daniel," he said, glancing around the stable before looking back at her. Suddenly, he turned around and reached for a blanket in a nearby nook. As he unfolded it, Eliza could see it was worn and frayed at the edges, but it looked soft and inviting. "Here," he said, draping it around her shoulders. As the fabric settled over her, warmth seeped in, chasing away the chill that had taken residence in her bones. "Thank you," she said again, feeling a flush of gratitude wash over her. It was a simple gesture, but it felt monumental in that moment. Daniel asked, settling himself on a nearby hay bale, his demeanor calm and inviting. Eliza took a moment to process. She could hear the distant rumble of thunder outside, but in that moment everything felt safe. "I don't know," she admitted. "It's just, I get it," Daniel replied. "A lot of people don't understand, but you can tell me when you're ready." His sincerity struck a chord deep inside her. For the first time, she felt like someone truly wanted to listen. "It hurts to be around them," she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. The corners of Daniel's mouth turned down slightly. "That's tough. You shouldn't have to bear that alone," he said. Eliza couldn't help but nod. The truth of his words pierced through the fog in her mind. "I just wanted to find a place to think, to breathe," she said, her voice gaining strength. "And you can do that here," Daniel replied, leaning back slightly as if he wanted to give her space. "You're welcome as long as you need." They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the rain outside the only thing punctuating the stillness. Daniel's gaze drifted toward a stall filled with hay, as if lost in thought. Eliza asked, wanting to keep the conversation going. "Yeah, I take care of the animals in the farm," he said, gesturing toward the horses in their stalls. Eliza looked over, noticing the gentle creatures, powerful yet calm, their large eyes filled with wisdom. "I've never spent much time around horses," she admitted. "They are," he agreed. "They can sense your emotions and respond to them." Their eyes met, and Eliza felt a flicker of something, an understanding that went beyond words. Daniel sensed what she needed and offered it without hesitation. As the evening wore on, Daniel shared stories about the farm, about working with animals and the small joys of everyday life. Each tale was filled with warmth and laughter, and for the first time in a long time, Eliza found herself smiling. She forgot about the chaos of her home and focused on the simple pleasures that life had to offer. Time slipped away, and Eliza lost track of how long they sat in the dim light, sharing stories and laughter. The rain continued to fall outside, but within the barn, a bubble of warmth surrounded them. It felt good to connect, to feel heard and seen. "Thank you for this," Eliza said eventually, her voice sincere. "I'm just glad you're here," he replied, his face turning serious. Eliza nodded, the weight of his words settling in. Maybe this place, this moment, was the beginning of something new, the chance to discover who she truly was. The barn felt less like a shelter and more like a sanctuary. As days turned into weeks, the bond between Eliza and Daniel deepened. She returned to the stable each day, finding solace in the animals and the simple tasks of caring for them. Daniel taught her how to groom the horses, feed them, and even how to speak softly to them. Every visit felt like a new layer of healing, peeling back the pain of her past. One afternoon, as they stood brushing the horses, Eliza gathered her courage. "I want to share something with you," she began, glancing at Daniel. "When I first came here, I felt so lost." Daniel paused, his attention fully on her. "I see more clearly," she replied, feeling the warmth of the blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, a constant reminder of his kindness. "That's amazing, Eliza," he said, pride shining in his eyes. With each passing day, Eliza began to understand the complexities of healing. Some days were easier than others. Moments of doubt crept in sometimes, whispering reminders of the turmoil she'd left behind. But Daniel was always there to anchor her. He believed in her even when she couldn't believe in herself. As the days turned to beautiful autumn evenings, the stable transformed. Eliza had begun to paint again, her brushes dancing across canvases filled with vibrant colors that echoed the beauty of the world around her. She painted the horses, the sunsets that cast a warm glow over the fields, and the laughter that bubbled between her and Daniel. Getting lost in her art felt liberating. Each stroke was a release, each color a new breath. Daniel was her first audience, constantly impressed by her talent and creativity. "You've got a gift, Eliza," he said, standing back to admire her work. It felt as if she were reclaiming all the moments of joy that had been overshadowed by pain. She felt alive again. One crisp evening, as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Eliza finally unveiled her latest painting. It was a landscape of the farm, vibrant and alive. The colors danced across the canvas like sunlight shimmering on water. "Wow," Daniel said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "It represents my journey, what I've found here," she explained, excitement bubbling in her voice. "You're not just capturing what you see, you're capturing what you feel," he remarked. Eliza felt her heart swell with pride, the warmth of knowing she had a voice, one that could be seen and felt through her art. It was empowering to express herself, to embrace her emotions rather than hide them. But as time went on, the shadows of her old life still lingered. On particularly difficult days, she found herself wrestling with lingering pain. One evening, after a particularly vivid painting session, she burst into tears, overwhelmed by the memories. The old feelings of inadequacy surged back, threatening to engulf her. Daniel rushed in, concern written all over his face. He asked, kneeling beside her. "I'm scared," she admitted between sobs. "What if I can't keep going? Look at how far you've come," he reassured her gently. "Healing isn't linear. It's okay to have setbacks, but that doesn't negate your progress." His words wrapped around her like a warm embrace, reminding her that it was okay to feel lost sometimes. "You're not alone in this," he added softly. Eliza took a deep breath, feeling the intensity of her emotions begin to ebb. "Thank you for always being here for me," she said, her voice steadier now. As they sat together in the fading light, she realized something profound. She was no longer a girl running from chaos. She was embracing life with all its uncertainties, hand in hand with someone who cherished her. As the seasons changed, so did Eliza's sense of self. Each day brought new layers of connection with Daniel, interwoven with laughter, shared dreams, and moments where both of them simply existed side by side. Together, they forged a bond that felt unbreakable. One chilly afternoon, as snow began to blanket the ground, Eliza decided to host a small gathering at the barn, a way to share her art with the community. She worked tirelessly to prepare, and when the day arrived, the stable buzzed with excitement. Friends, neighbors, and curious visitors filled the space, marveling at her paintings that adorned the walls. Eliza stood in the center, her heart racing with anticipation and nerves. Daniel stayed close, offering quiet encouragement. As she shared the stories behind her art, she realized how far she had come. The fear began to slip away, replaced by something even stronger, pride. Later that evening, a woman approached her, eyes shining with tears. "Your work resonates with me," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You're sharing so much more than art." Eliza felt a warmth flood her heart. She was no longer just telling her story, she was empowering others to find their own voices. "Thank you," she said, her eyes glistening. In the fading light of the gathering, Eliza felt a profound shift within. She had transformed not just her own life, but also the lives of those around her. Through art, kindness, and the unexpected friendship with Daniel, she had built a new foundation, a fortress of support and understanding. As the night drew to a close, Eliza found herself outside, breathing in the crisp winter air. Daniel joined her, his presence grounding and reassuring. "You were amazing in there," he said, a proud smile lighting up his face. "Thank you for helping me get here," she replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Remember, you've always had it in you," he said softly, his gaze locking onto hers. As they stood there, the weight of the past felt lighter than ever before. Eliza had found both shelter and strength, not only in the stable, but in the connection forged with Daniel. With the universe as their canvas, there were endless possibilities ahead. Together, they shared laughter, hopes, and dreams as the stars twinkled above. In that tender moment, surrounded by the beauty of their journey, Eliza knew she had finally discovered her place in the world, a home built on resilience, love, and the extraordinary power of connection. The night was dark and stormy, rain pouring down in sheets, rattling against the barn roof like 1,000 tiny feet. Inside, a figure crouched in the shadows, heart racing, breath hitching in her chest. Eliza had tucked herself into a far corner, trying to make herself as small as possible. She didn't want to be found. Just hours before, she had been running, a storm of her own building inside her. The shouting from her house was like an echoing alarm bell. It was always like that, constant chaos, arguments flying through the air like arrows. Her parents fought over everything: money, family, even the weather. And Eliza was left standing in the crossfire, too often the silent witness. Tonight, fear propelled her feet faster than she ever thought possible. She needed to escape, to find a place where the world outside could not reach her. The barn had appeared like a beacon through the downpour, a glimmer of hope hiding in the dark. She glanced around at the shadows, the scent of hay flooding her senses, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp wood. It was serene but haunting at the same time. It wasn't just the rain, she felt a different storm raging within her, a mix of loneliness and anxiety swirling wildly. As the wind howled outside, Eliza hugged her knees to her chest. Would anyone come looking for her? Would anyone care? The questions whirled in her mind like leaves caught in a gust. Suddenly, the heavy barn door creaked open, light flooding the space. Eliza's heart raced as her instincts kicked in. She pressed against the wall, waiting, watching. The silhouette of a tall figure stepped inside, holding a lantern that swung softly, casting flickering shadows across the barn. The young man called out, his voice deep yet soothing. She held her breath, unsure of whether to respond. The darkness felt like a breed of safety, but the warmth in his voice tickled an instinctive need to be seen. Finally, she stepped out into the light, her pulse quickening. The young man's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with concern as he took her in. "You look cold," he said, stepping closer, the lantern illuminating his features. I'm Eliza," she stammered, the words trembling on her lips. "I didn't mean to intrude." He studied her for a moment, and Eliza felt the weight of those blue eyes searching, understanding. "You're safe here," he reassured her, his voice like a warm blanket. "I promise." "There's no one looking for me," she replied, uncertainty mingling with sadness. He offered a gentle smile, something tender and kind. "No one should have to feel like they're running," he said. Eliza hesitated, yet something in his demeanor felt so disarmingly genuine. Slowly, he pulled a thick, worn blanket from a stack of hay and held it out to her. Here, the blanket was rough but inviting. Eliza wrapped it around her shoulders, feeling heat seep into her bones like the sun breaking through clouds. "Thank you," she whispered, the gratitude surging inside her. "Of course," he replied, his expression brightening. "I'm Daniel, by the way," she echoed, her curiosity piqued even amid her turmoil. "They're incredible animals," he explained, moving closer to a stall filled with hay. "You'd love them, they can sense your emotions, and they're so gentle." Eliza asked, intrigued. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah. They can be a great comfort." As he spoke, Eliza felt a sense of calm envelop her. She started to share the whirlwind of memories, all the shouting and chaos from her home. "It's not just the noise," she said, her voice breaking a little. "It's everything. It's tough, I know," he replied softly, "but you're here now." Little by little, as the rain continued to pour outside, Eliza began to share her story. She spoke about the stress, the fights, and the loneliness that had become her normal. Daniel listened, nodding, his expression never shifting from concern into pity. There was an understanding between them, a small yet powerful connection. "You're strong for enduring all that," he said after she finished. "I didn't feel courageous," she laughed softly, the sound genuine yet tinged with sadness. "You're not drowning anymore," Daniel assured her, leaning back against the wall a little more comfortably. His words settled like a salve on her mind, soothing the edges of her turbulent thoughts. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope igniting within her, a tiny glimmer that maybe this was her chance to find peace. Night drifted on, and they continued talking. Under the dim light, Daniel shared stories about the farm and the animals, his laughter breaking through Eliza's walls. There was an authenticity to his words, and she found herself smiling, captivated by the way he conveyed joy even in the most mundane stories. The storm raged outside, but in this isolated sanctuary, Eliza felt safe. For the first time in a long while, she forgot about the fights, the fear, and the weight of her reality. Eventually, the sound of rain became a soothing backdrop as her eyelids grew heavier. Daniel must have noticed he smiled at her, a warmth in his gaze. "You look like you could use some rest." Eliza started to protest, but the exhaustion clung to her like an anchor. "You're not imposing," he insisted, genuine concern lacing his words. "You're the guest here." With that, she nodded, surrendering to the comfort of the blanket. She found a pile of hay that felt surprisingly inviting, nestling into it. As her eyes fluttered closed, a wave of gratitude washed over her. A moment she knew this stable might just offer her more than shelter. It could be the beginning of something new. When Eliza woke up, the storm had ebbed into a gentle pat her. The soft glow of dawn filtered through the barn windows, and for the first time in ages, she felt refreshed like the world had pressed the reset button. The scent of hay mingled with that fresh morning air, and she sat up to find Daniel standing nearby, sorting through some supplies. He turned to her and smiled brightly. "Good morning." "Really well, thanks," she replied, the previous night's chaos now feeling like a distant echo. "I think sometimes our bodies just need to unwind from all the stress," he suggested. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and she suddenly remembered how long it had been since she'd truly eaten. She asked, a hint of embarrassment creeping into her words. Daniel chuckled. "I can whip something up, come on." Over the next few minutes, Eliza found herself smiling, caught up in the routine of morning chores. The rhythm felt comforting. It reminded her of better days when life didn't feel so tumultuous. As they prepared breakfast together, chopping vegetables and sharing the task of cooking, Eliza felt her heart lift a little more. "You know, I've never done anything like this before," she confessed, her indignation slowly melting away. Daniel looked at her knowingly. "It's practice to connect with simple joys." She stirred the mixture on the stove while Daniel set the table, and they chatted about everything and nothing. Laughter spilled from her lips, ringing out like music against the backdrop of the stable. Soon enough, they sat down to enjoy a simple yet hearty meal, the food filling her with warmth. Eliza relished every bite, her stomach growling with happiness. "This is really good," she complimented Daniel, and he beamed, pride shining in his eyes. He replied. At the mention of her art, a pang of excitement surged through her. She suggested, her heart racing at the thought of expressing herself again. Daniel's eyes lit up. Absolutely, this place could use a splash of color. Intrigued by the idea, Eliza felt the gears of inspiration begin to turn. She exclaimed, a smile spreading across her face. They finished breakfast, and once Daniel had cleaned up, he led her outside to the paddocks where the horses grazed peacefully. The sun now shone with a brightness that felt like a warm hug after the storm, the world transformed. Eliza watched the majestic creatures, their beauty leaving her breathless. "They're incredible," she whispered, drawn in by their grace. "They're good souls," Daniel said softly. Inspired, Eliza set up her canvas near the paddock, positioning herself so she could watch the horses as she painted. With each brushstroke, her worries began to dissolve. The emotions she'd bottled up unfurled on the canvas, colors swirling like the feelings in her heart. Daniel would occasionally wander by, offering encouragement or sharing more stories about his life on the farm. Smooth, calming words wrapped around her as she painted, and she quickly lost track of time. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the world in golden hues, Eliza stepped back to admire her work. It was a vibrant explosion of colors that captured the essence of the horses and the serenity she had found there. Daniel exclaimed, his voice filled with genuine admiration. Eliza felt her cheeks blush with pride. "Thank you. I didn't know if I could find my way back to painting, but this." The canvas had become a portal for her emotions, an outlet for the turmoil she had escaped. In that moment, she realized she was unraveling the complex layers of her heart, each stroke pulling her further away from her haunted past. But as dusk approached, a rush of uncertainty swept over her. Doubt began to creep back in, whispering dark reminders of her home and all the chaos she'd left behind. She asked, her voice trembling. Daniel paused, sensing the shift. "It's normal to question yourself, especially when you're in the midst of change," he said gently. With a deep breath, Eliza felt a rush of determination. "I won't let my past steal this joy from me," she vowed, and in that silent pledge, a newfound resilience sparked inside her. The days turned into weeks, and Eliza found herself transforming more than just her art. As the seasons shifted from summer to autumn, she thrived in her new routine, caring for the animals, painting vibrant works, and spending countless moments with Daniel, who had become more than just a friend. They worked side by side, their bond deepening with each shared experience. Laughter filled the barn, weaving a tapestry of life that felt so foreign yet almost enchanting to her. But shadows still lingered on the edges of her conscience. It was a storm she had yet to fully break free from. One night, as they sat together chatting around a small fire outside, an anxiety bubbled up inside her. Eliza asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel turned to her, a serious expression crossing his face. "You're strong, Eliza. You've already fought your way out." His words pierced through her fears. "You've helped me see that," she said with sincerity. "I'll always be here," he vowed, looking deep into her eyes. "You're not alone in this." In that moment, Eliza knew she had found more than just shelter. She had found a true connection. They were two souls entwined, navigating their own storms together. The next morning, Eliza woke up feeling renewed. The rain had passed, leaving the world shiny and glistening. Today was a new day, and she intended to make the most of it. With brushes and canvas in hand, she made her way to the stable, ready to paint with the fresh inspiration that filled her heart. As the sun rose higher, Eliza lost herself in her work, colors swirling together, creating a portrait of hope. She poured her heart onto the canvas, each stroke a promise to herself to never give up. Hours later, as she contemplated the finished piece, she stepped back to admire it. It depicted a beautiful sunrise over the stable, golden light spilling across the fields, bursting with warmth and vitality. Daniel appeared in the doorway, catching sight of her masterpiece. He said, an awestruck expression on his face. "Thank you," Eliza replied, her heart swelling with pride. "Art has a way of healing," he said, moving closer. "It's a gift." As he spoke, Eliza felt a rush of excitement at the idea of sharing her art with others. "You're right, I want to show people what I've created." "That's a great idea," Daniel encouraged, a smile breaking across his face. "Let's set something up, a small exhibition." Eliza could hardly believe the words. "Absolutely," he assured her. Her heart raced with the possibilities. She exclaimed, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She felt invigorated, as if she had just taken a giant leap forward. With Daniel's help, they began organizing the exhibition, reaching out to friends and neighbors. Each day, Eliza poured herself into her paintings, creating new pieces to showcase her journey from darkness into light. As the date of the exhibition approached, an excitement buzzed in the air. Eliza worked tirelessly, preparing the barn for the event. She hung her art, arranged the space, and even baked cookies to offer guests. Finally, the day arrived. The barn was transformed into a gallery, filled with golden light, laughter, and her art adorning the walls. Eliza's heart raced as people began to arrive, each face filled with curiosity. As she greeted them, the fear and anxiety melted away. She realized she was ready to share her story. With each interaction, she felt more confident. That evening, as she spoke about her journey, people listened with rapt attention. The response was overwhelming. "Your art speaks volumes," a woman remarked with tears in her eyes. Eliza felt a warmth spread through her. She was making an impact, sharing her struggles and triumphs while connecting with others who needed to hear her story. As the night wore on, Daniel remained by her side, a supportive presence that made everything feel possible. They shared moments of laughter, joy, and connection, creating memories that would last a lifetime. Later, as the crowd began to thin, Eliza stepped outside, breathing in the cool evening air. Daniel followed her, a proud smile on his face. "You did it. You shared your voice," he said, his eyes sparkling. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied, gratitude overflowing in her heart. "We're a team. You've always had the strength in you," he said, glancing back at the barn glowing with the last remnants of warm light. As they stood under the twinkling stars, Eliza realized that she had not only found shelter in a stable, but had also discovered a home, a place where she could truly be herself, free from pain and full of hope. The past would always be a part of her, but it no longer defined who she was. With Daniel by her side, she was ready to embrace the future, craft her own story, and paint her life with the colors of resilience, joy, and love. She smiled, feeling stronger than ever, ready to pour her heart into both her art and her life, exploring every new opportunity that awaited her. Through connection, community, and courage, she had found her way home. The storm was fierce, rain lashing down like tiny daggers against the metal roof of the barn. Eliza huddled in a dark corner, heart pounding, breath quickening. She felt trapped in a world of noise, the chaos of her home echoing in her mind. Her parents' fights were infamous, fierce battles that reverberated through the halls, but tonight she had escaped that prison, even if just for a moment. With tears on her cheeks and a storm brewing inside her, she pressed her back against the rough wood, feeling a mixture of fear and desperation. It had started with just a raised voice, an ordinary evening quickly spiraling into another argument, as if the air crackled with electricity each time conflict sparked. But this time she couldn't take it. Just outside the barn, the wind howled, mixed with the distant rumble of thunder. Eliza had been a shadow in her own home, fading into the background, unnoticed, unheard. That night she decided she wouldn't be a bystander anymore. She had to escape. The barn door swung open suddenly, the gusts of wind pushing in, rattling the old structure. Eliza froze, her heart racing. A figure stepped inside, holding a lantern that illuminated the dusty corners, casting flickering shadows across the walls. Came a voice, deep and steady. Eliza held her breath, debating whether to reveal herself, but curiosity nudged at her. She stepped cautiously into the dim light, unsure of what she would find. The young man squinted, his eyes widening when they locked onto hers. He exclaimed, surprised, "It's okay, I won't hurt you." The sincerity in his voice was disarming. "Eliza," she managed, her voice shaking. He asked, concern etching his features. She saw kindness in his eyes, something she hadn't felt in a long time. "From everything," she admitted, the words spilling from her like a battered dam. "My home." The young man took a careful step forward. "I'm Daniel," he said gently. "You're safe here." Eliza couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me," she replied, skepticism mixing with an unexpected glimmer of hope. "Because everyone deserves kindness, especially in moments like this," Daniel said, his voice steady. "You look cold." He reached behind him and pulled out a worn, familiar blanket, a soft, crumpled thing that looked like it might hold stories of its own. She hesitated, but the look in his eyes melted her resistance. As he draped the blanket around her shoulders, warmth instantly flooded through her, wrapping her in a cocoon of safety. For the first time in ages, Eliza felt the weight of something heavy begin to lift. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel smiled, and she couldn't help but respond with a shy grin. He prompted, sitting down on a nearby hay bale, his demeanor calm and welcoming. Eliza's heart raced, torn between the desire to speak her truth and the instinct to hide. She glanced at the nearby horses, their gentle eyes watching the interaction. "I was just tired of the fighting," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel nodded, his expression serious. "I get it." For a moment, silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. Eliza felt a surge of vulnerability, but Daniel's presence offered a strange comfort. "I just wanted to feel safe again," she confessed, the truth spilling out. "You deserve that," he said, his voice steady. "You took a brave step just by coming here." As Eliza listened, she felt a flicker of strength igniting within her. Perhaps this was her moment, an opportunity to let go of the chains that had bound her for so long. "I don't know if I can find my way back to myself," she admitted. Daniel leaned in slightly, his gaze unwavering. "You might be surprised at what you can discover about yourself. Healing takes time, but you have to allow yourself to feel." She nodded, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Maybe if she could confront the chaos, she could start to reclaim her life. I want to try, she whispered, feeling a warmth bubble within her chest. The storm continued to rage outside, but in that barn, Eliza felt a sense of peace settle over her. As the hours slipped away, they shared stories, laughter breaking through the tension. It felt good to connect, to be seen, and for the first time in a long while, Eliza felt hope flicker to life. Days passed, and what began as a chance encounter turned into a lifeline. Eliza found herself returning to the barn each day, drawn to the warmth of Daniel's presence and the solace offered by the animals. The horses became her confidants, their gentle spirits grounding her every time she was near them. Daniel said one afternoon while they were brushing the horses together, "They know when you're afraid, when you're happy." Eliza studied the horse closest to her, a majestic creature with warm brown eyes. "I think I can feel something in them too," she said thoughtfully. "Exactly," he replied. "That's the beauty of animals. They take you as you are, no judgment, just acceptance." Those words resonated deeply, and with each passing day, Eliza found herself blossoming in ways she never thought possible. She started to paint again, grabbing brushes and canvas to express the emotions that churned inside her. The colors danced on the surface, a vibrant reflection of her rebirth. Time slipped through her fingers, weeks turned into months, yet every day spent in the stable felt like a fresh start. Eliza reveled in the small things, the sound of the horses' hooves on the ground, the feel of the sun warming her skin, and the connection she had forged with Daniel. In the midst of all this, romance began to bloom between them. Their bond deepened, a connection forged through shared vulnerability and understanding. Laughter became the language they spoke, the steady heartbeat of their friendship. But even as her world brightened, Eliza couldn't help but feel the shadows of her past creeping back. There were nights when memories hit her like the cold wind outside, moments when she'd wake up suddenly, heart racing, gripping the blanket Daniel had given her as a lifeline. One evening, as twilight fell, she sat on a hay bale outside, staring into the deepening colors of the sky, the beauty of sunset surrounded by the distant sounds of nature. The barn felt warm and alive, but her heart was heavy. "Hey," Daniel said softly as he approached her. "I don't know if I can keep going," Eliza admitted, fighting against the urge to retreat back into herself. Daniel sat down beside her, his presence a comforting anchor. "It's okay, doubt is part of the process. But look how far you've come." A flicker of doubt still lingered in her heart. "What if I lose it?" he said simply, turning to meet her gaze. "You've made the choice to change your life. You're writing your own story now, Eliza." His words resonated deep within her. She realized he was right. She had the power to tell her story, a story filled with hope and resilience rather than fear and pain. As the weeks went by, Eliza felt herself step further away from the shadows. She painted, laughed, and even began to shake off the last remnants of her past. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she found herself inspired to create a piece that captured her journey. "Maybe I should hold an exhibition," she mused out loud, her voice hesitating at the thought. Daniel responded enthusiastically. "You can show everyone your progress, your art, and the light you've found." As they spoke, the idea began to take shape like the colors on her canvas. Eliza's heart raced at the thought of sharing her work with others. Days turned into weeks, and her exhibition started to come to life. Eliza invited friends and neighbors, eagerly preparing the barn to showcase her art. Every painting told a story, a testimony of hope and healing. Then, just days before the event, everything changed. A familiar sound pierced the tranquil atmosphere of the barn, shouting, angry voices echoing through the night. Eliza's heart sank. "Stay here," Daniel urged, stepping outside to investigate. Eliza held her breath, dread creeping over her. Voices grew louder, discordant chaos that sent her spiraling back to the very place she had fought to run from. As Daniel stepped out into the night, she could see shadows moving outside the barn, figures arguing heatedly. Eliza's heart pounded. What were they doing here? Panic clawed at her throat. She hadn't been prepared for this clash of the past demanding to be heard. She called out, but it was too late. He was already outside, confronting the figures. Someone shouted, the voice sharp and cold. Eliza gasped as she recognized her father's voice, the anger laced in every word. "You think you can just run away?" Fear gripped her and she hesitated. What would happen next? She was terrified they'd drag her back home, back to the chaos she thought she had escaped. Daniel stood firm, creating a wall between her and her past. "You need to back off," he said, his voice steady but filled with authority. "She's done nothing wrong." Eliza's heart raced. Would he protect her? The weight of her old life began to crash down around her. She stumbled out of the barn, feeling compelled and scared, ready to face whatever unfolded. Her father turned to her, his expression filled with disdain. "You think you can run away from us?" The words pierced through her. She felt the pain rising in her chest, the fear she had fought so hard to conquer. But in that moment, standing beside Daniel, she realized something profound. A flicker of defiance ignited within her. "I'm not a coward," she declared, her voice stronger than she expected. "I'm choosing to stand up for myself." The chaos shifted, and for the first time, Eliza felt unwavering strength pulsating through her veins. Would this be the moment she finally reclaimed her narrative, her life, her power? As tension hung thick in the air, she feared what might happen next. Would they take her back into that suffocating chaos, or would she finally embrace her truth with Daniel by her side? In the swirling storm of confrontation and courage, Eliza stood tall, determined to forge her own destiny, ready to take control of her life and her story, for better or for worse. Everything hung in the balance as the echoes of her past collided with the hope of her future, and she felt not just like a girl seeking shelter, but a woman who was finally ready to fight for her freedom.